How's it? Welcome back to Baz's Garage, where we are keeping it simple, stupid. Just to revisit where we were the other day, we've got the front end here that we have now finished. So it's all welded up, ready to be put into the chassis when we get that sorted. We've got the hinge joints on there, the bearings are all looking good, and now obviously we need to fit tyres to this sort of thing. So what we'll do is, so what I suggest we do is that we fit tubes to the tyres, especially in the front and also in the rear. The reason for that is because we run quite low pressures in the tubes and tyres. When the tyre is low and you're getting a lot of sideways load on it, it tends to pop the bead. So if the bead pops, you're going to lose your pressure. If you've got a tube in there, it won't do that. Okay, so always run a tube in your tyres. Now these are the rims that we're using. So these are the rims that we've got from Kingkat Direct. They're slightly wider than the other ones I could find, and we're going to put a tube in them. Now, some of the rims have different widths each side, which means that you can only put the tyre or the tube in one way. Now, these are basically the same, so it won't matter which way you put this on. Now, I'm going to look at this, and you can see the hole where the valve's got to go, so I'm going to put that at the top. So what I do is I get a bar through the centre, put it into the old vise here, crank it up. I'm going to put that over the top of there. I'm going to grab the tube, the tyre, sorry. Some tyres are directional, most of these are not directional, they're all the one way, so it doesn't matter. I've got a bit of soapy water here, just helps to put it on. You can use the proper lubricant or whatever you like to put these on with, but I just sort of grab a bit of that. So the key to this is to get the bead into the groove and then feed it on around. So I'm sort of going to have a go at that, and hopefully I can make it look like it's not too hard to do. So that's to get the one under there. And then we just feed it on. Okay, so now that part's on, nice and easy. We're going to get the tube. Now some tubes are offset, some have got a bend into them. Have a look at them to see where it's sitting so that you can get it sitting in the right place. So I'm going to put this in this way. So I'm going to put it up into here. Now you need to feed it in. They can be a little bit tricky to feed in sometimes. Feed it in carefully. A little bit of a mucking around sort of a thing to do. Now again, you want to get this sitting nicely over the rim and then find the hole for this to come up through. Pull that up through like that. Now you want to make sure that it's not being caught and not being pinched on anything. So it's sitting in there quite nicely. I'll turn this around. So what I want now is I want the tube on the opposite side to what I'm going to put in. And again, I'm going to pull it right down, push it in, and then try and feed it on as gently as I can and get it to come forward. And just gently take it till it pops in. There we go. And then we're going to grab this bit here. I'm actually going to pull the take this out of here, put it back over here. I'm going to grab the valve, take the valve out with the valve key. Now what I like to do is I like to seat it first. So I'm going to pump a bit of air into here and I'm going to let it all come out so that it seats nicely and we're not going to get any pinches. The old compressor here, you can do this here if you've got another kind of pump, but I just use the compressor. And then I just let all the air come out and give it a bit of a wiggle so that hopefully it's going to sit where it needs to sit and seat back nicely without any major dramas. Now the other thing to notice is on the side of here there's a little line that goes around the bead. You want this to line up with the rim and be equidistant all the way around it, okay? So when it's seated, it should sit there quite nicely. Sometimes you get a bang when you seat them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some more air in here, and then I'm going to put the valve in. So I put some more air in. Put more than you need in. Get the valve in your valve key. Stick it into there. Tighten that up. Now the good thing to do with this now is there's probably got a bit too much air in there, but that's going to be okay for the moment. Get your soapy water, put a little bit on the valve. If it bubbles away in here, you know the valve's leaking. If it doesn't bubble, then it's all happy. So that should have bubbles coming out if it was leaking, and it's not. So effectively there is the tyre fitted, and obviously now it would bolt directly onto the front of here. So for us to get the chassis sitting correct, we're going to have to bolt these on and get the rear axle in so that we can fit it all in. So I'll just throw this on the bench for the moment. Now, the next thing I've done is, with the chassis here, I wanted to check that everything was sitting where it should be, it was square and it was straight. So what I did was I grabbed my tape measure and I came up to the very front of here and I measured down the length of the chassis. And what I discovered was that there was actually a difference in the length from one side to the other. It was about 5mm difference. So what I've done is I've actually made both ends the same length. The other thing that I noticed was that the gap between the two parts of the chassis was slightly different from here to here. So what I've had to do is I've had to put this strop on here and ratchet it to pull it across so that I've got that straight. I've got the same distance either way. And then what I did was I actually took a midpoint from the center of here, and I took my tape measure and I measured diagonally to there, and then I measured diagonally to there, so that what I ended up with is a basically completely square chassis that was ready to go. I then cut a piece of this bar here, which is actually a 50 by 30, I think it is, and I'm going to weld that onto the end of here to hold the chassis square and straight. So you can see I'm ready to actually fit that in. I've got my magnets in here holding it square. I've checked that everything's square, and I'm going to tack weld that into place, and that's the next thing that I need to do. So we've tack welded this onto the back here now. What I did next was I grabbed the axle, I grabbed the bearing holders, which is one was already on here, and then I grabbed the wheels. And so what I did was I put the wheel here, put the axle through here, and then worked out what sort of height I needed the chassis. So it worked out that by the time I had measured it, now this is about 100mm off the ground, which is about right. The front of the mower is actually a bit lower. It's got this extra bit in here, so I might have to cut that off, because if you go too low, the problem you're going to have, it's fine if you're just racing on a flat track, but if you race on anything like grass or paddocks or anything like that, if you're too low, you're going to bottom out and you can end up losing speed or stopping or anything like that. You end up like a bulldozer basically. So you need to have, in my opinion, probably about 90 to 100mm clearance underneath the mower. Okay, so we worked that out, and it was actually really good because I've got this 40mm bar here, which is the perfect size. It gave me the right distance for the bearing holders to go on. So I measured the holes in the bearing holder, which is these ones, measured the holes, put them on there. And the beauty of it is that Motive Auto Parts also sent the bolts and the nuts, which I thought was really clever, because I thought I had to find my own nuts and bolts. So effectively what we're going to do is I could put this up underneath here and weld them in place, and then it'll be easy to take on and off. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do that or not yet, but for the moment we'll just assemble it up just briefly so you can just have a look. I won't even bother to put the washers underneath it. When we do a final assembly, we'll decide whether we're going to weld these in, and whether or not we just need to put the washers in as well. So we'll remember to do that. So effectively, once that's in here, I'll grab my little whizzy thing here. Now, just get now this needs to make sure that you sit evenly. So we've now got those on here. Now you've also got to make sure that you have enough clearance for your sprockets and your brake discs to go on. So what I'll do is I'll slide this axle through, and I'll put the, now we're not quite sure which way round these are going to go at the moment, so we'll just put this through here, all going well, and slide through. Okay. And then what we can do is we can grab these wheels and we'll just put them on here. Take this out. Yep, need about 6 pairs of hands to do this. That's that side done, and I'll just grab the other wheel and I'll put this one on here. So effectively that's where this is going to sit. Now the other thing is we've got the T drive here. So the T drive, looking at the T-drive now, knowing that the engine turns clockwise. By the time it gets down here, this is going to turn clockwise as well. So if this turns clockwise, which is clockwise, it means that the cog's going to go that way, which means it's going to drive the wheels forward. So the T-drive, we've got to fit somewhere in here yet. Now, obviously I've got to try and fit this in the best possible place. And also we want to try and drop the seat down a bit as well. So that's going to be a bit of mucking around to get it correct with the line up with the engine through there. So we'll leave that for the moment. So once we had the back sitting right, we had to get the front sitting right because we needed to weld that axle in. Now, if we come around to the front here, you'll see that I put a block of wood underneath here, and then I grabbed my level, I chucked it on here, and I went, yep, that's pretty level. So what I've got is a chassis that is straight and level. And then I checked out the height of this. So effectively what I did was I put the wheels on, which I'll just grab a couple of the wheels now and we'll just throw them on so you can sort of see. So that wheel's on there. And then we'll grab the other wheel. And put this one on here. So effectively what we've got now is a complete rolling chassis, which is about the right height, I feel, off the ground. And so the next stage is to sort out the steering. Now, we're going to talk about the Ackerman, we're going to sort that out. The other thing I did notice is that you may have noticed I've done a little bit of grinding on the inside of here because I wanted to get more steering. When I first put these in, I had them further away. The problem was that them was over 1 metre wide. So I've had to pull these in a bit to get back to the metre wide, which meant that I've had to grind a little bit away from there to get more steering. And we'll see how it goes. I can take more off if I need to, but I think it's going to be pretty good. The beauty of this way of doing it is you get a steering stop, which means that you're not going to over crank your steering, and it's going to take away the load if you're on full lock. So it's a good idea to do that. Effectively now we're going to sort out the steering. I'm going to have the shaft come down through here with a coupling here, which is going to change the angle down, and then we're going to bring it through to the front. Haven't quite sorted out how I'm going to do this yet. That's one of the next jobs to sort out. So rolling chassis, pretty happy. Alright, so we now have a fully rolling chassis, which is great. We've got a few more things to sort out. This chassis is quite interesting. It's very heavy in the middle of it. There's a whole lot of extra steel in there, which is going to get in the way of some of the things that we need to put in, like the belt and the steering. So we'll see what we have to leave in and what we can take away to make it all work. But pretty good progress this time. So until next time, Baz's Garage.